Is disaster brewing for Meghan Markle's brand as ever, as she sort of pseudo announces that there won't be any new products until 2026? Yes, that is 6 months away now, and she has nothing in the pipeline for as ever. This reveals huge, massive, glaring problems behind the scenes because if the launch is successful, if the brand is successful, you do not wait 6 months for more products. And so Meghan Markle admitting this as her podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder, which totally and completely flopped, comes to a close for this season one. She's attempting to tell us there will be a season two. I think we can just glean overall from this is that everything Meghan Markle has touched this year has sort of flopped. It's been a massive failure. And what's more fascinating and revealing is that Netflix might be the one at the wheel now. Netflix may have given Meghan the rights to sort of guide things through the initial launch, but given how apparently somehow disastrous this has been, I think Netflix is going, whoa, 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 slow this horse down. Let us take control. Or maybe they're just even trying to get any idea she has off the ground. This is massively problematic for Meghan and reveals how devoid, I think, of any vision or idea for this brand Meghan is because she's still talking in soliloquies. She's still not even telling us what As Ever is about. And I think Netflix is pulling teeth to get Meghan Markle to give them anything workable. So we are going to get into this new interview that Meghan put in Fast Company. I don't know what even magazine this is, but it's really shocking what Meghan reveals here and what we can glean because guys, I want to 100% guarantee you right now, things are an epic mess at As Ever. So we again are going to explore all this. But if you haven't been to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany. I provide compelling royal commentary. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, I would love to have you back. And we're now delving into a little bit of a realm that I call the Crown Report, looking at what other royals are up to. And obviously, King Charles and Queen Camilla just opened Parliament over there in Canada. So let's listen to a little bit of his speech here.
The Crown has for so long been a symbol of unity for Canada. It also represents stability and continuity from the past to the present. As it should, it stands proudly as a symbol of Canada today in all her richness and dynamism.
Of course, this was a very historic event. His mother has opened Parliament a couple of times, but the last time was in the 1970s. So this was a very big deal. They had a huge, huge warm reception there in Ottawa, which is absolutely fantastic to see because I know there are a lot of questions of what does the future hold for Charles as king because he's not nearly as popular a figure as his mother or his son. So he's sort of a transitional king, I think, in many ways. I mean, he could live well into his 90s like his mother. I'm sort of doubting that, but this was a chance for him to definitely make connections in Canada, and it seemed to go very, very well for this very short trip. And we also have some, let's say, consternation in the student visa space, which may impact Princess Elizabeth of the Belgians. She is the Duchess of Brabant, and she has been doing her graduate studies at Harvard University. And apparently now there's going to be a lot of vetting processes going on for student visas. The entire program has been paused. And there's even additional evaluations for what some of the students have been doing online in terms of social media. This is done to address the issue that Trump sees of protests on campus. So we will see how this impacts Princess Elizabeth. And I do believe because Princess Elizabeth is a future queen, and obviously you want to keep relations between countries good. I think diplomatically, Princess Elizabeth will get shooed in for her visa. The question is, though, does she take it if the rest of the Belgian students who are interested in studying abroad don't? That is a fascinating question, and one we'll see maybe play out in the years to come. And because of all this, it's maybe, I mean, this might have already always been the plan, but it's sort of interesting that Princess Ingrid Alexandra is actually going to Sydney, Australia for her studies. And this, you could say, is a change because she should have perhaps gone to the United States. That's where her father went for some of his schooling. Also, Crown Princess Victoria went to Yale for a period of time. But since things are getting, you could say, contentious in the States, she decided to go to Australia instead. So interesting piece there when it comes to royalty and what that means. So we'll see how all of this plays out, but very fascinating updates on the Crown Report front. All right, into this article. And as I was reading through this, I even wrote a Substack for it. I actually started off with a different opinion. And then in the process of writing, I sort of came to a realization. And that's why sometimes, if I get the chance, if I force myself, I like to actually write out my thoughts ahead of time because sometimes that helps me process the information and process the situation. I even find if I talk to friends and family after I filmed a video, I'm like, darn, I should have had that point. But all of that to say, this is a big problem. As ever, is in big trouble. You do not, by any stretch of the imagination, have a successful launch and then go, oh, you know what? We need to rethink everything. We'll get back to you in 6 months. No, that does not happen. So something has gone wrong. Something has gone wrong. Something is going terribly wrong to such an extent that needs a massive restructuring and basically re-envisioning the entire brand. Yes, those of you who are Meghan Markle Uber stans who got as ever tattooed on your arms, that seems like an incredibly stupid decision right now because we might not even have the brand as ever in a year from now. Now, we don't know all the details about what exactly is going on behind the scenes, but I think this article is actually really revealing. And if Meghan had, let's say, paid more attention or something, she maybe wouldn't have said some of these things because I'm looking at this going, if I was Netflix, I'd be going, oh my gosh. But I have a theory. I have a theory, which I'll reveal at the end, that I think Meghan is no longer in charge of As Ever because she handled it so incredibly badly. So let's get into this. And I enjoy kind of analyzing these business things because I do hope people maybe get something from it, become more aware of certain things, but also to just show how incredibly inept Meghan is. She sucks at this. I'm sorry, there's no other way to put it. She genuinely sucks at it. And you'll notice in this article, immediately what she does is talk about her kids. And the reason she does that is to deflect from how badly things are going. This is not a successful brand. This was not a successful launch. This was not a successful show or a podcast. Despite her great return in 2025, this has been a failure of a year so far for Meghan. And again, we'll get into why. She says how Meghan built her pioneering partnership with Netflix. As the first season of her podcast ends, Meghan Markle is looking to build on the success of As Ever, the brand she built with Netflix. So we have Netflix in here twice, and I'm going to guess, just my theory, that Netflix is the one really running the show anymore. So let's get down into it. So Meghan carries many titles these days. She's a podcaster, a philanthropist, a children's book author, the star of a Netflix show, and the founder of a direct-to-consumer startup. But when I sit down to speak with her, she's recently taken on a new role, that of Tooth Fairy. Because to me, I understand the personal bent, but to me, this seems like a deflection. Seems like a business magazine. Why are you talking about being the Tooth Fairy? And this takes up a good chunk of the beginning. And then we get into the struggles. And this is picking up on a thread Meghan left in Time magazine. She's 100% aware of this. She's really always thinking about these kind of things. And I don't think it actually works well for her. She says Archie recently lost his first tooth. Meghan rushed home to ensure she could be the one to leave a little money and a small dinosaur under his pillow. At 2 a.m., I have a big question of why Archie was waking up at 2 a.m. I mean, obviously kids wake up in the middle of the night quite a bit. But did she wake him up to show him the money and the dinosaur she was hiding under his pillow? Archie woke Meghan up excitedly to tell her what had happened. I had a lot of business meetings the next morning, but I still chose to cuddle with him for the rest of the night, she says. Those mom moments energize me to be a better founder, a better employer, a better boss. No, it doesn't. She's a terrible boss. Allegedly. We have heard endlessly that she's pretty much a bully as a boss. Again, allegedly. So she's not a better boss. She's not a better founder. She's not a better employer. An employer and a better boss are the same things. I don't know if she doesn't know that. If you're an employer, you're the boss. Just pointing that out. And it's all meant to sound nice. And she's always, I have so many business meetings. I have so many business meetings. But what are you accomplishing? That's a big question. Because she talks endlessly about going to meetings. but we don't really see the fruition of anything. And honestly, she could say, "Oh, I had so many meetings," but she could reschedule them probably. She probably wakes up at later in the day. She can probably schedule her meetings to start at 11:30, go to 6 or 7 o'clock at night. She can do what, like, in many ways, whatever the heck she wants. So this idea that she was, "Oh, I took time out of my night. I got less sleep so my son could tell me about the tooth fairy," is just complete hogwash. It's just utter and complete hogwash. And again, a deflection tactic from the disasters going on, because these business meetings are not to make the business better, it's to save it. So let's get into this bit here. These are the kind of work life details that Meghan likes to get into in her podcast series, Confessions of a Female Founder, which totally flopped. Made with the production company Lemonada Media, which is also behind the podcast by Sarah Silverman and David Duchovny, among others. It has more than 800,000 downloads since its April launch. Now, granted, it only has 8 episodes. So because it only has 8 episodes, each episode has only had 100,000 downloads. Oh my gosh. That's really bad. That's really bad. That's not impressive. That's not impressive. So I can get generally, I don't always hit this metric, but oftentimes I can get upwards of 100,000 views on a video. So let me look just at this month. Now, granted, again, I produce a heck of a lot more content, but in comparison, guys, I just do this all myself. So let's look at my views for May. 1.9 million views. Double Meghan. She had 8 weeks. Huge profile. I got more views. Let's see. Last 7 days, 513,000 views. So that's 3/5 or something. I'm terrible at math. Of what Meghan got, I got in a week. She had in days. That is not an impressive number by any stretch of the. If it was 8 million, maybe 800,000. And to be clear here, guys, overall, so she could have 250 downloads for the first episode, 100 downloads for the second, and then 50 for the third, 20 for the fourth. Like, it could go down that low. So that number means almost nothing. And I think an actual average would be better, although we might not be able to get that, but not great. Yeah, there we go. There we go. You missed it, but we had to interrupt this special broadcast because my dog, Pippa, needed to get into the room. Yes. So let's keep going. On the show, Meghan talks with female founders about the origins of their business along the lines of Guy Raz's How I Built This. I assume Guy Raz did it better. But the show also has another dimension, allows Meghan to give practical advice about launching her own lifestyle brand as ever. I'm pulling back the curtain to allow people to see the candid experience of being a founder. Now, I haven't listened to the podcast because, to be quite honest, I find Meghan Markle to be incredibly vapid, vain, and completely inept at business. So I have no desire to even see her attempt to find information, pulling back the curtain about being a founder, because I don't think she's listened to any of it. So there's nothing for me to get there, because obviously I've seen the results of Meghan Markle's efforts and they've been pretty dismal. So I don't think they're that good. In the 8-part series, she's spoken to guests ranging from Bumble's Whitney Wolfe Herd to Krish's Cassandra Thirstwell. The finale, released May 27th, features Sarah Blakely, founder of Spanx and Sneaks. And let's double check, guys. I checked this morning. We'll even quit and then relaunch Apple Podcasts just to see, did this article at all result in any sort of increase in the profile of her show on Apple Podcasts? We're scanning, we're going down, and the answer is no. The answer is no. In all categories right now in business, she ranks 49. So guys, for recording this episode, I just updated it. It's sitting at number 42, which is only up 7 spots. Not very impressive at all. This thing, despite even this additional bit of publicity, is just not tracking in the slightest. When I looked at her episode, it was like 69 something. The episode has, though, Meghan Markle can breathe a sigh of relief in the business subcategory of episodes. It has risen to the rank of 40. Again, showing that despite the publicity, despite the alleged interest and everything, her stuff is not tracking. It's just not. So what does this tell me? It was a massive failure and a flop. Nobody listened. Nobody cares. Even though this is actually a pretty good guess, nobody cares. In a conversation with Blakely, Meghan talks about how she partnered with Netflix to create, as ever, her new brand, which launched in February. I guess the name was announced. The products weren't officially launched until April, just saying. The line included products like tea, jams, honey, cookie mixes, and her iconic flower sprinkles, which are edible flower petals to spruce up dishes. I mean, groundbreaking stuff there, right? Right. Over the past few years, even as Netflix's subscriber numbers have continued to show impressive growth, it added 18.91 million subscribers, a year-over-year increase of 15.9%, which is very good, in the fourth quarter of 2024. It also has been exploring how it can create products tied to the content of shows. So this is actually smart. So again, I've talked about this before, but what Netflix is attempting to do, which is very smart, is diversify its revenue stream. Because at some point, they'll reach complete market saturation. There will be no subscribers or no more subscribers. Like, what if Netflix got every person on earth to sign up? There's nowhere to go. You have people who die off and then people who replace them. And maybe as the Earth's population dwindles, you don't have as much there. So, yeah, there's sort of a limit to what Netflix can achieve by just having subscriptions. It's added a tier that has ads for the content, and they're going to have merchandise, marketing, all these sorts of things. It all makes sense from a business perspective. The streaming service now has an online shop that sells everything from cosplay costumes for Squid Game to Stranger Things bomber jackets. With Bridgerton, one of Netflix's biggest hits, the streaming service produced its own products like coffee mugs. It also licensed Bridgerton branding to other companies like Hill House and Selkie to produce dresses. So very smart, very smart. And it is smart of them to have merchandise for their shows. And here's where it gets sort of interesting and where Meghan, I think, is sort of deviating from the thing. And I want to make the argument here that Meghan probably doesn't own as much of her brand as you might think. She might own 49% and Netflix owns 51%. And as I was speaking with Dan Wooten, I'll put the conversation we had this week up above. But when I was talking to Dan, one of the things he pointed out, which was very smart, is that when it comes to building a brand, you want to keep and retain as much control as possible. It's only the people who really have no clue what they're doing and really want to give the running of a brand to somebody else who gives people more control. And I think that's sort of what's happening here. Because when you read through this and really think about what Meghan is saying, you realize, oh, this wasn't Meghan's idea. This was Netflix's idea. Because Netflix could not get anything out of her and her husband. And so they had to basically conjure something out of nothing and are still trying to sell and shill it. So here's what she says. Meghan says that she had been exploring various ways of launching a business when Bella Bajaria, Netflix content officer, approached her. Now Meghan has shared something else about this too. And this was during her Time 100 event. This is from the Daily Mail. When she began sending these items as gifts, so this was like jam and flower arrangements, Bella Bajaria, chief content officer of Netflix, suggested there's a show here, claims the 43-year-old actress turned entrepreneur. Meghan then revealed, I hadn't at the onset thought that was something I wanted to share in that way. With the final thrust of enthusiasm for her latest project, she added, creatively, we worked as partners to really find a way for it to land and for me to be able to share it and just have fun, which I think is really the goal of this chapter. What I think, though, when you really consider how bad the brand has been and how bad the show was, I think this was Bella Bajaria going, oh, dear Lord, can they please think of something? Can these two nincompoops do something? And this is what she came up with. She saw something Meghan was actually doing. And because Meghan, in my opinion, is pretty lazy, she was like, oh, there's a show there. You like doing this. Let's do basically the lowest hanging fruit. Now, that's smart in a lot of ways, but it's the lowest hanging fruit. It's the easiest thing in the world to get Meghan to do because she already does it. That's why Netflix chose it, because they wouldn't have to push her to do more. She already sort of does this. So why not capitalize on what she already does, because she can't do anything else. I think that's the truth. And that's why Netflix came up with this. I think in many ways, this was all Netflix's idea because they can't get Meghan to do diddly squat. And if they have more control over this, they can force her to do more things. And I'll get to why I think maybe we can see this reflected and how terribly lackluster the as ever content is. Meghan says, at the time I'd been working towards building out my own in house team. Meghan says, but I had a complete U turn because I completely bought into the vision she was sharing, which is where content and commerce meet, not in a product placement way, but rather in an ideological way. Okay, number one, that means nothing. Like this product placement and the content meets commerce. And like, that's not the show you're shilling, though. You can shill that, I think, on other shows and that might work. But the whole point of this show is to sell the freaking products. That's what you're selling. You're not selling really the brand, you're selling the products. So this sort of vision thing, I don't think really is going to work at the end of the day. But I want to bring your attention to this idea, the vision she was sharing. This is Bella's vision, not Meghan's. Meghan, yes, does some of this stuff. And yes, some of it she enjoys. But this is not really her. It's somebody else. Because again, I think the issue has always been Netflix could not get Harry and Meghan's rear ends in gear to create content. And so they had to do something incredibly simple to get Meghan to do anything remotely productive because she's not productive. She's not good at this. And she really struggled to get any of this together. She really did. And so Bella had to come in and get something together that she could get Meghan Markle to buy into. I would not be surprised if there were massive conversations at Netflix racking their brains trying to figure out how they can get this cosplay royal who claims she is a duchess who just wants to putter around her $15 million mansion, how they could get her to get a real job, basically, how they could get her to work. They couldn't get her to work. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Take it for what you will. Goes on to say, in many ways, this is a pioneering partnership for Netflix. Along with Meghan, the Netflix team decided that it made sense for As Ever to exist on its own without any Netflix branding. A stupid mistake, by the way. That was not a good idea, which is maybe, again, why we're maybe getting some reformatting. This is why the line isn't called With Love Meghan like the show. The brand is in the same universe as the show, but they're not the same. Oh, dear Lord. So this would work. This could work. The problem is that you did not define what a single brand was. You can't have multiple competing brands if there's no overarching vision. Like this is branding marketing 101. This is like bare bones basic stuff. When it comes to me and this channel, I have Royal News Network. I actually have a LLC over everything. It's not named Royal News Network, but there's the LLC there. Royal News Network is a tentacle and it has multiple tentacles hanging off of it, like the Crown Report. And then we have Royal Fashion News that has like Tiara Tuesdays or Thursdays. And then we also have like the best and worst dress lists that are not specifically like branded, but kind of part of that whole brand identity. And then we have a future, at some point, there'll be a podcast, a royal history podcast or channel at some point. And I have a whole podcast series in mind at some point. So there will be more tentacles to this overall brand. When it comes to Royal News Network before, I started with Royal News Network. And the idea was to encompass everything about royals. That was the idea. But what I found as I was sort of working through things is that when it comes to having a news channel, you can't really create content in advance because things change day to day. In addition to that, when it comes to fashion, I could have a Fashion Friday segment set up. But if there's a big news story breaking Friday, then I need to push the fashion story back to capitalize on the news story. And that can be really disruptive. So instead, I was like, okay, I need to create a fashion channel. But I established the identity of this channel first and then moved on to the next chapter. Meghan didn't do that. I would argue she did it entirely backwards. She wanted to throw every branding up at front with no overarching vision except for the general idea of hospitality and maybe California. And it's not sticking. It's not really sticking at all. It's not making the impact that I think Netflix envisioned it to have. And so it's become a problem. She didn't have a vision here. You can't say, well, they're in the same universe if you haven't established what the universe is. You have to establish that first, and then you can branch and play them off each other. But at the same time, it's also really stupid, in my opinion, because the whole point of the show should be to promote the products. Why else should the show exist unless it is to show the products? If you don't have those two things, it don't work. So it goes on to say, Meghan points out that Netflix is not just a financial backer. The company's consumer packaged goods teams worked closely with Meghan's team to manufacture the products. Okay, that reflects badly on Meghan and Netflix, guys, because the sticker was crooked, and I also found numerous grammatical errors and stuff in the packaging. So yeah, somebody dropped the ball somewhere. But again, I have an idea of maybe what was behind that a bit. Meghan also points out, we are on calls daily, working through product development, SKUs, and inventory. I hate how she keeps throwing out SKUs. Like she's sounding clever. It's like we're just looking at products. Like she could just say product development. SKUs and inventory doesn't really make a ton of sense. And it really doesn't. Like, why are you talking about SKUs and inventory? Inventory and SKUs are kind of the same thing. Like SKUs is literally is like the ID number. That's what a SKU is. Why are you talking about SKUs? It's inventory or products. Like that would make more sense. Talking about SKUs. I used to work at Best Buy. A SKU was like a 6 or 7 digit number that identified the product. That's all it was. And so it's just like, I'm like, what are you doing? And she says, we have a field trip tomorrow to look at different manufacturers and suppliers as we expand the brand. So like she's sort of teasing this, but I'm like, this seems awfully late for this type of thing to be happening. Should you not have figured this all out before you launched the brand? Wouldn't you think? So it says, As Ever's first collection was a runaway success. It really wasn't. Why do you think they're not announcing any new products until 2026? Because it was not a runaway success. Meghan says that even though the team spent a year preparing the line and forecasting demand, it did not. There's no way. There's zero way that is correct. I do not believe that for a second. I don't believe that for a second. If they had really done their market research, they would have created, number one, better products, number two, better branding, but also they would have figured out how much to order. Like they deliberately made an excruciatingly small order to go, it's sold out. But I don't think there was that much there. And I wouldn't be surprised if sort of Netflix maybe found out about this a little later or something, and they found out how little was made, how fast it sold. Like if you only had, like say at the most 500 of the spread, because I think the spread she created the most of. So let's say she only had 500 of that. That's nothing. That's nothing. And I would not be surprised if it's even smaller. Let's say it was just 200. That it took 45 minutes to sell out means nothing. Like Kylie Cosmetics, I think. So just as a counterexample, Kylie's lip kits from Kylie Jenner, there was so much interest that the site completely crashed, which did not happen with Meghan. And then in addition to that, everything sold out in minutes. And I truly believe it was minutes. Or even maybe seconds. Meghan Markle sold out in 45 minutes. Now, that's still impressive. But again, that entire number depends on the actual number of products. Much like Meghan's podcast, only 100,000 views per episode. Pretty pathetic, to be honest. Now, if they announce an updated number and it's only like 850, they're probably rounding up. And again, it shows you how abysmally overall the thing has performed. And I think this is the same. There's something behind the scenes here that we can't see yet, which shows that this failed, this flopped. It 100% did. Now they're trying to plan as ever's next phase. Well, you should have number one, more products up to sell. Why even have a SKU for the raspberry spread if there's not any spread? If you're not going to sell the spread without the as ever keepsake. So there was a keepsake packaging for the spread. That was the only thing they sold. They didn't sell just the spread itself, which again is a huge question. The easiest thing to do would have been to endlessly restock the popular products, which would likely sell out very quickly again. Likely, but not confirmed. But while the As Ever team has hinted online that the items will be back on sale soon, Meghan also wants to take a step back, gather data from the launch, and figure out exactly what As Ever could be. Honey, you should have figured that out before you launched the stinking brand. This, to me, screams that there's massive restructuring going on behind the scenes. And I think the truth is that Netflix is running the ship now. Meghan botched it and Netflix is now running it, and they control most of it. They control her future in many ways. And that's because she bungled this whole thing 6 weeks from Sunday. I think they tried to give her more leeway because they're like, oh, we can help support her, get her off the ground. But then when she crashed and burned, they're like, okay, we got to salvage this ship here because our name is freaking on the email now. Because I did notice that change. That initially it just said as ever as the email signature at the very bottom. There's, a little box with some usually saying the company name and address or something. Now it says as ever and Netflix because Netflix is like, oh, we're tied to this catastrophe. So we have to figure out how to fix it because she says she's planning to announce new products in the first quarter of 2026. That's 6 months away. That is 6 months away. That is catastrophic. People will forget. They'll run out of products. And then if they can't find hers, they'll go elsewhere. Because there's nothing here, I don't think, that you could get in another competitor. Now, I will say, I'm not a tea person. I'm not a coffee person. I like hot chocolate. So I like Hotel Chocolat and Withered of Chelsea. But there's not that many hot chocolate items out there. So when I find them, I gravitate to them. Like Swiss Miss sucks. Starbucks is not bad. Like the packets, they're not bad. But I like the ones I can get from Europe. Meghan has infinite competitors with tea. Infinite competitors and much simpler competitors with shortbread. You can make it with flour, sugar, and like baking soda or something. I don't know. And then crepes, the same thing. Only takes a couple of ingredients. So like she has no more products and won't announce more. Now she could restock the existing that she has. But honestly, for her to say, I want to take a step back, gather data from the launch, and figure out what exactly as ever could be, means she doesn't even know what it is. She has no freaking clue what her brand is. And Netflix knows that. And Netflix is like, okay, we'll now help you. She's a baby. She has no freaking clue what she's doing. She has no clue what she wants, what her vision is, anything. And so Netflix is now probably having all these meetings to try to nail down with her what she wants to do because she doesn't know what she wants. Oh my gosh, this is crazy to me. This is utter and complete insanity to me that she has no flipping clue what she wants and that she's gotten this far with nothing. And I mean, it shows. I've said over and over again, there's like no consistency to this brand whatsoever. She's still using stuff from American Riviera Orchard. Like, this is a catastrophe. Love Gwyneth Paltrow, hate Gwyneth Paltrow. She has a brand. It works. It's called Goop. She has multiple tentacles from it. It all works together. But Meghan has no clue. And to take a step back and quote unquote gather data and figure out what as ever could be means that she had no idea what it was in the first place. I knew what my vision was for this channel, which is that I wanted to cover everything related to royals. I wanted to cover it more broadly than just the British and Harry and Meghan. I know I can cover a lot of it about Harry and Meghan, but I talk about a lot of the other royals. I wanted to do more on royal fashion. I do royal fashion unboxings, which not really anybody else does. And so I had this vision and I brought my vision to life, and it's been very successful because I had a vision to work from. She has no vision. And if you have no vision, there's nowhere for you to go because you don't know what you want. You don't know what you want it to be. And unfortunately for Meghan, this brand is entirely based off her personality. And I don't think there's much personality there. I've said it before. She's shallow, vain, vapid. And that's what this brand is right now. Shallow, vain, and vapid because that's who Meghan is. And she has no clue what she wants. She just wants to be rich and famous. I mean, that's like the sole goal of her life is to be rich and famous. It says there's some clues about what other new items might be in the pipeline. Meghan's trademark application for a brand includes things like cookbooks, tableware, cutlery, and servingware. I want to really focus on hospitality angle of as ever. But as we take the learnings, we can understand what the customer needs are seasonally. What does that even mean? She doesn't even know. She doesn't even know. She knows nothing. Like this literally tells you she knows flipping nothing about her company and brand. She knows. Okay. Said it before, not going to say it again, but this drives me bonkers. She has been given millions of dollars and still doesn't know what the heck she wants. So there are many models of successful brands. As Meghan contemplates what comes next, there are many directions she could go, from focusing on a single product category like Selena Gomez's Rare Beauty and Kim Kardashian's Skims to a broader play like Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop and Jessica Alba's The Honest Company. But for now, she believes it makes sense to build a brand around a single idea. But then what is the idea? My heart is very deeply in my home. What does that mean? We're not in your home. Is it your kids? Is it your family? Like what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. She says everything comes from being rooted in the love story of your home and garden. And then you can imagine different verticals coming out of that. It still doesn't mean anything. It's so shallow. It's so vapid. So vain. Love story of your home. You shouldn't have a love story with your home, Meghan. It should just be your home. And I'm sure, I have no doubt you would tear out that kitchen 100% in your home if you could. You don't have the money to. And yeah, this makes no sense. This makes no sense because it shouldn't be the love story of your home and your garden. It should be the love story towards your family and friends. How do you best serve them? She's talking about an inanimate building and an inanimate garden. Now, granted, garden has living things in it with sharp plants and insects and birds and all sorts of things, but these are inanimate objects. So you don't result in the same feeling of love, I think, in some ways, as you do for family, friends, and helping, let's say, the broader bit of humanity or something. I don't know. But when you don't have a deeper love for anybody but yourself, I mean, this is the story of Meghan. There's not a lot deeper here. In the future, though, the sky's the limit. When I asked whether she might explore a clothing business, since many women are drawn to her personal style, the fashion category is something I will explore at a later date, Meghan says, because I do think that's an interesting space for me. I think she was trying that out with Shop My, and I think she found that it wasn't as successful as she thought it was. Yeah. I think that was a tentative step in that direction, and she got her hand slapped and realized people aren't buying her stuff. As she continues building as ever, there's a good chance we'll hear about her twists and turns through a podcast. There's an interest in doing a second season of Confessions of a Female Founder, and many female founders have approached her to be guests on the series. You notice they don't name names. It's just a vague, oh, so many people are interested. They do that a lot in Hollywood. Oftentimes that means nobody's really interested. You don't even hear anybody talking about it. Like, where's Oprah Winfrey talking about how great Confessions of a Female Founder is and how she can't wait to be on the show? Or Jessica Alba or Kerry Washington, if she has a company. I don't know what it is if she does. Don't think the interest is there, which I think, again, has been another really difficult thing for Meghan. But Meghan is now involved in such a wide range of projects. She's sure to find some way to tell her story. That's not a good thing if it's so wide ranging. She's basically thrown everything at the wall at once. And that's not a good strategy. And this is really dumb. If I had to write a resume about myself, how narcissistic can you be? I don't know what I would call myself. Oh, really? I thought you were a founder, Meghan. I thought you were an entrepreneur. I thought you had the greatest love story ever. That's what you have told us. Unless it's not true. I think it speaks to this chapter many of us find ourselves in, where none of us are one note. But I believe all the notes I'm playing are part of the same song. Again, the word salad nonsense that means everything and absolutely nothing. So Ladies and gentlemen, what can we glean here? As ever is a failure. It flopped. Meghan knows it, Netflix knows it, and they're desperately retooling things behind the scene. The product launch did not go well. The products were not well received. People didn't like them. There were issues, so many different things. And so, yeah, they're having to rethink everything. I think that's what's happening right now. And even when it comes to her Instagram, I think she's throwing up old content because they're trying to figure out what the new vision is. And they're like, do something, please, for the love of all that is good, do something. And all, I guess, her infinite wisdom is just throwing up endless platitudes and word puns because that's all she's got. All she's got are food puns. That's all she has. And Netflix is desperately trying to create a success out of a failure. And I wish they would put their money towards better uses. I just don't think Meghan Markle is the star that Ted Sandros thinks she is. Now, I was going to do a piece on Netflix, maybe, upping Meghan's contract or something at a much lower rate. I'll probably still do that. But I think what Netflix has hopefully maybe started to learn is that Meghan Markle, again, creates a lot of noise for media outlets like myself and other news media around the world. But it doesn't mean there are consumers out there. There are not consumers for Meghan Markle products. And that's why even Harry is having to go back to work. The money is not flowing in. Netflix has probably taken a majority of control of her company. And so she doesn't really have anything. She has very minimal. She's now at the mercy of Netflix, hoping maybe between the two of them, somehow they can drag a success out of Meghan. But I don't think this is her gift. I don't know what her gift is, but it's not this. It's not writing. It's her fancy cursive. Maybe she can figure out something with her fancy cursive. But Netflix is just desperate to try to get something out of this woman they signed to a $100 million contract before they realized she really doesn't have anything to offer. And they're going to have to do all the heavy lifting while Meghan attempts to take all the credit. But really, it is Netflix, guys, I think, running the ship at this point. It's Netflix. So, guys, let me know what you think of this latest reveal. What do you think of Meghan Markle not releasing any more products until 2026? Oh, this is bad. This is so incredibly bad, but I want to get your thoughts. So let me know below. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall talk to you again soon. Bye.